What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. I'm uploading two videos tonight. The first one should be out hopefully around 7:30. The second one I will try and get out by 8 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm super excited for the NFL season to start. College football started this weekend, or week one. Technically, week zero was a week and a half ago. But I'm super excited for football. And if you don't know, I'm going to be in New York for week one, so I'm super excited for that. So if anyone's going to be at that week one game, let me know. I would love to meet some of you guys. Just to talk about Ravens football. Because I don't get to meet a lot of Ravens fans out on the West Coast. So I'm super excited for that game. I'm leaving for New York on Thursday, so I'll be there for about a week. So super excited to do that. But in this video today, I want to be talking about the Ravens' keys to success in the first couple of weeks of the season because typically the Ravens, under Lamar Jackson, they finished very well, and they haven't started and been terrible. Some teams start off really poorly, but they've had some weeks where it's like, oh, they didn't come out very well early in the season. For example, the Cleveland Browns game in 2019, where they just have these games where it's just like, oh, they didn't look that good. Last year we saw it a couple of times, because of injuries. And it was like, we don't really know how to run these certain plays. We don't have the personnel to be able to do this. Look at the Las Vegas Raiders game. Felt like that was managed pretty poorly. But at the same time, Tyshawn Williams and Latavius Murray were very new to the roster. So this video, I'm talking about the overall, how do they get through, and we'll say the first 4 weeks of the season, as they prepare for that week 5 game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Because hopefully by then, we'll have Travis Jones. Maybe we'll have Gus Edwards. We'll have a lot more personnel that we'll be able to, really roll out and try and beat them in Sunday Night Football. But, also, I apologize if there's a bit of an echo. I don't have my normal microphone and things like that. I have my normal camera. So I apologize for that. But, I'm going to talk, relatively quietly. So you may need to turn up the volume a little bit more. I just don't want there to be like some major echo that you're hearing. But obviously, week one starts off against the Jets. Really, I'm talking about how to beat the AFC East. That's this video because we go Jets, Dolphins, at Patriots, and then against the Buffalo Bills. But I think the first thing to start off the season is you don't need to get fancy. All right. Go to what works. And I know I'm not a huge fan of Greg Roman, but the biggest thing that they need to do is run the offense the way that it's designed to be run. 3 tight end sets, right? Use Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Nick Boyle. You have to use them. If you don't use them, it's going to be really difficult to get wins. So use that. Use the option game. All right. That was something that early in the season last year, a lot of the season with Lamar Jackson, they just couldn't do. They've had the personnel in that, other than Kenyon Drake, they've had those guys for a while. They should be able to be on the same page and be able to run the read options, the RPOs, and all those different sorts of things. And that is a major asset of the Baltimore Ravens. That is why this offense is so difficult to stop. Is the threat of Lamar Jackson running. You don't need to run Lamar Jackson 20 times a game because every time you're handing the ball off, the back of the defender's mind is, what if he keeps it? So they need to make sure that they establish Lamar Jackson is back to running the football. Again, doesn't have to be 20 times a game. Don't do that. I advise against running Lamar 20 times a game, but have him on some designed quarterback runs. I think that's very important to establish that he can still do it. He's coming off of an injury, wasn't major, but establish that he can do it. That's the biggest key to success. Because obviously later in the season, when we get a truly fully healthy JK, we don't know if he's going to play week one. If we get a fully healthy Gus Edwards, that's going to bolster the run game. But the biggest factor in the run game isn't the play call; it's whether or not Lamar Jackson is a threat to run. And it's not about whether or not he is; it's whether or not the opponents believe he is. Make them think every run could be a Lamar Jackson keeper. That's major to this team. The other thing that they need to do is establish the connection between Lamar Jackson and his weapons. That's on offense, right? Because we know Lamar and Mark Andrews team. Again, it's all about the beginning of the season is setting the tone of what you can be doing later on. And I understand, you may save some plays. You may save some. Oh well, this guy, we may not want to overuse him week one because we may need him week 5 against the Bengals, whatever. But establish those connections. Get Lamar Jackson throwing the ball to Rashad Bateman. Get him throwing it to Isaiah Likely. Get him throwing it to whoever you have as wide receiver too, whether it's James Prochet, Duvernay, Demarcus Robinson. Get him throwing them the football. All right. When possible, if you're up in a game, you're up by 14 in the third quarter, don't start trying to chew the clock. All right. Establish that connection. And, I'll say this isn't just a beginning of the year thing. Don't slow down. The 2019 Baltimore Ravens were so good because they never took their foot off the gas. They were as explosive in the fourth quarter as they were in the first quarter. So if you get up by 14, win by 30, you know, don't go out there and be like, because in the preseason you can do that because, it doesn't, wins and losses don't count. So it's like, okay, let's just kind of run out this game. Let's just end it. It's totally fine as long as they get that win. In the regular season, like, keep going, push, 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 build momentum, because that's how they built momentum in 2019. But that's the offensive side of the ball. I think it's establishing the connection and establishing Lamar Jackson as a threat to run early on in the season. On the defensive side of the ball, okay. Also, actually, I'm going to add in one more thing on the offensive side of the ball. If they run cover zero, beat cover zero. Run some slants, run some quick throws, things like that. Because if you can establish, hey, cover zero is not actually going to beat us like it did last year, boom, that wipes away that whole narrative. That's the final thing I'll say on the offense. But on the defensive side of the ball, how do you manage this team? I think the first thing is you don't want to get, again, I don't want to say you don't want to get too fancy, but you want to make sure that your players are comfortable to start the season. All right. I think it's very different from last year. You don't need to establish crazy things, right? Because we know Mike McDonald. I think he's going to really ramp up what this defense can really be over the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, up until the playoffs. He's going to really be ramping up. Odafe Oweh may, start the season, as a primary edge rusher. But, towards the end of the season, we may see him a little bit at Sam dropping back into coverage. And I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing as long as it's done properly. Wink Martindale, it felt like sometimes he was doing that. And it was like, why is this the situation where you're dropping him back? But there are definitely situations where you could be like, hey, let's throw Odafe into coverage because he's that athletic. But don't do that right away. Don't just start off the season and be like, all right, Odafe, you're playing coverage, consistently. Like, don't do that. Kind of ramp up the trickiness of this entire defense because it's definitely going to get tricky and it's going to get really unique and it's going to get really, really dangerous. But you don't want to start off right away doing that. Now, if you get up in a game, you're up by 21 in the fourth quarter, then totally fine. Get tricky, put them in those difficult situations, see how they do. The next thing I think is going to be something it's going to be controversial, I'll say, because I think we need to rely on the vets early on, which means we may see, I think it may be smart to use Chuck Clark a little bit more early on as Kyle Hamilton really gets his footing. Use, Kyle Fuller a little bit more early on, as we allow for Pepe and we allow for Kyle Hamilton to really kind of get their footing in the NFL speed. I'm not saying bench him, play Kyle Hamilton as much as possible, but use Chuck Clark. Kind of fade him out throughout the season. It could be a situation like, it's different from quarterback, right? Because we see, Tyrod Taylor started the season for Baker Mayfield, and then he started the season for Justin Herbert in their respective rookie years. And it's like, okay, you don't want to bench them completely. Have Chuck Clark be the primary safety. Well, even though I think Kyle Hamilton is a better player, allow him to get adjusted, kind of move him all around, get him to see throw him in the box, throw him in the slot, throw him over top, have him really kind of move around to start the year. Just that he has, okay, I've played everywhere now. Now let's go do what I do. And that's when we kind of look at it like, okay, now Chuck Clark has taken that step down. Because Chuck Clark has been the starting Ravens strong safety for years now. And he's played there and he knows what to do and he can, kind of play wherever you need him to. But initially, let Kyle be the guy where you're kind of plugging everywhere else. And then once he really has his footing, then be like, okay, Kyle, you're a single high safety or wherever they want to put him, I think he's best single high, but we also have Marcus Williams. So, kind of shifting them in and out as the single high safety. And obviously you can go two over top, whatever you want to do. But, overall, that's kind of the biggest thing with Kyle Hamilton. You don't need to throw him to the wolves. All right. We start off the season, we're going up against a couple of really solid tight ends, Mike Gesicki in week 2, Hunter Henry in week 3. I know the Bills, they don't have a great tight end. They have Dawson Knox, though, who has a knack for getting open and making some big plays for that Bills offense. But that's because there's so many guys to stop. But those are kind of my things. Some of them may seem like, oh, yeah, that's what you should do. But at the same time, I think a lot of people are like, no, bench Chuck Clark, let Kyle Hamilton be the one, from the jump. No, we want to see Pepe out there. We want to see him out there no matter what. And it's like, let's let him get adjusted because we need them to be at their best week 18, wild card round. Hopefully we're not even playing the wild card round, but in the playoffs, that's when we need them to be at their best. Don't destroy confidence early on. Let them build up to it. Let them dominate at the end of the year. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys are all thinking. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for Daily Ravens content. And I'll see all of you again, and hopefully like within half an hour when I'll have the next video uploaded.